Self-love 101. Self-love is something that a lot of people will tell you, and it can be very triggering, in fact. Have you ever been really triggered and then someone says, you gotta love yourself first? And it's like, thank you, Socrates. Everybody already knows that you gotta love yourself first. But you see, loving yourself becomes a very difficult thing because you have something in the way. I want you to know something. When your triggers are gone, self-love is automatic and effortless. But you see, trying to get out of a state of rumination, feeling not good enough, brokenness, guilt, something like that, a lack of self-forgiveness. Forgiveness is the key. You've got to grant yourself humanity. What you need to see is that the primary barrier that makes forgiveness so seemingly difficult is fear. Let me tell you why. Because when you're triggered, it turns you into an avoidant. You want to see that you feel small, that you actually are afraid, that when it comes to forgiveness, you actually get anxiety. You actually feel terrified of forgiving yourself. And you see, that'll lead to the thought that you're undeserving. You see, those triggered emotions of not enough, disappointment, failure, that's what's keeping you stuck. They're not authentic. They're not real. They're only real as neurological phenomenon, positive feedback loops. And you'll notice that it happens. But you see, when you get triggered, suddenly you recall all the other experiences where you've been triggered, and triggers have a way of contaminating our interpretation of reality, that it really undermines the true essence of you, because underneath it, you have to see your intentionality, that trying to be perfect in life is the source of a lot of our problems because perfection is impossible. And that is often how we disqualify ourselves, is like can't. Notice the avoidance. Notice how you even feel like you can't forgive yourself, and that is a profound emotional barrier. But the fact is, it's actually easy to do. It's just an illusion that it's difficult. Forgiveness is the first step. It's granting yourself humanity. It's literally accepting yourself. But when you accept yourself, it's not accepting your brokenness per se. It's accepting that you're a human being. And so it goes well beyond that because it's actually letting go of brokenness. And so you want to see that the unwillingness to forgive yourself is the reason for this experience of a lack of self-love, and there's even guilt associated with not forgiving yourself. So you have so many different layers of triggers because there's a whole emotional cascading fingerprint that you're ruminating through. You see, this notion that something's wrong embeds you in your head, and so you're trying to fix yourself. It's almost as if you think you need to fix all your problems to then be forgivable, when the lack of forgiveness is what's keeping you ruminating and therefore avoidant and unable to resolve your problems. You need to see right now that you're having a very profound reduction of conscious power. Your creativity, where is it? Right? You're stuck. Don't you see the stuckness? Don't you see how there's this anxiety and rumination, and it's like your imagination isn't working? Like your ability to just move, shake, and problem solve. Think about yourself in your highest states of being. Think about when your emotions are really great, how easy things seem to come. That's because fear is something that profoundly contaminates our mind and disables our creativity and problem-solving ability. And when we have fear blocking us, it actually perpetuates the problems. And the perpetuation is caused by the continual procrastination and avoidance. And so consider this, that the lack of forgiveness is a defense mechanism that keeps you stuck. And so you're avoiding. And so if you're broken, if there's something wrong, if you're judging yourself, that is actually something that entitles you to not have to take action. You see, so like any kind of self-pity, any notion of brokenness, deficiency, being a failure, being not enough, that is just avoidance. And so you're avoiding life to protect yourself from more failure and disappointment because you inappropriately think that these emotions have something to do with what's actually happening in your life. And so forgiveness is not, how do I forgive? It's just forgiveness itself. That the act of forgiveness is the action to take. That it doesn't require precondition. You see, in order for you to be responsible and resolve the things that you think are causing all your problems, you need your mental clarity. So it's actually advantageous to forgive yourself, to release yourself from the rumination so that you can now see life objectively and see that it's just circumstance, it's just stuff. This is a crazy game of life. Like, you got to think about the inauthentic, crazy reality we're living in. Like, we're sitting here marching forward to World War III. We've got all this inflationary pressure that you're working and you have to have a job, and all the things that are triggering us all day long, all the time, is all totally unnatural. And it's causing this for a lot of people. And it gets us stuck running in these vicious circles and on treadmills of validation seeking, and none of it is natural. That this world of ego does this to the best of us, and you're not alone. And so you're going to need to forgive yourself, and the self-love is automatic. And so it's not about loving yourself first. It's about forgiving yourself first so that love just returns. Because see, consider that loving yourself is not something that you do. It's not something that you conjure. You see, it seems like you need to love yourself first because you see the guilt that is automatically triggered by your triggers is like seemingly the opposite, where you're beating yourself up. But you see, that's not voluntary. That is just rhetorical, repetitive. You're just stuck in your head, and those emotions are not something that correlate to actual reality. It's a contamination of the mind. And so self-love is not something that you have to put on, do, earn. It doesn't require prerequisites. It doesn't require anything. It's not a past-based thing where you have to be a good person and everyone loves you and then you, no. The validation seeking is a compensation for these experiences. And so self-love is not a result of being the best human being. It's actually just the experience of your own wholeness. You see, if you're just emotionally neutral, if you're just experiencing your wholeness absent the triggers, then self-love is just, of course. And so it's really not about loving yourself first, because that's the mental mind trap. Like when someone says you must love yourself first and you're just all triggered up, that will trigger you because it just adds more shit. And then you got all this crazy emotion and all this attachment to bullshit. And so it's it seems impossible. And so self-love is not something you put on, not something you earn. It's not anything to do with your circumstances or anything at all. It actually just automatically returns because these emotions are what's in the way. So if you have triggered emotions, then love isn't going to be there. You see, fear-based emotions like failure, rejection, abandonment, those things are fight or flight-based paradigms of survival, and survival-based fear takes precedent and suppresses emotion. And so your self-love is already there. It's just been subordinated because your brain is creating an emergency, like things that you got to fix, things you got to do, and you're likely in a state of overwhelm because when you get triggered, it literally creates a lack of consciousness and it reconstitutes your relationship to everything. Notice how this one trigger created a whole cascade of stuff, and it just seemed to be like one of those when it rains, it pours. Well, when it rains, it pours just comes down to the continuation of more triggering. You see, once you get kind of reduced by a trigger, it transforms and creates the fear of failure that projects everywhere, and it sort of reinforces itself. So the reduction of consciousness, the reduction of imagination, the depressive states where the sadness, the guilt, it just keeps repeating, that's the issue. The issue is this neurological phenomenon, and forgiveness is going to be your way out. And so do not worry about generating self-love as a precondition for anything. That is not really true. You see, people that are doing that are compensating, having to always try to convince yourself you're worthy and lovable is battling yourself. You see, so you're battling your triggers. You're battling your lack of perfection all the time. You're believing in yourself, believing. No. You got to get out of ego. So forgiveness is going to cause a restoration. So you just want to restore a sense of wholeness and get into the acknowledgement of your true underlying intentions. Your intentions is who you are, not the outcome, not people's opinions, not your triggers. And so you just got to get that out of the way and let the self-love just happen naturally.